Hello everyone, welcome. In this video, let's talk about the pressing attachment and number 7 against the low one space pincer and number 6. As you can see, this video is made a little bit later than all the other pincer videos because I just found out that I actually kind of forgot to cover this move, which is not the optimal move and number 7 for black, but it does exist and you do see it on Joseki books, but most of these Joseki books are a little outdated in the age of AI. So I will show you the traditional Josekis, which I think are still very much playable by amateur players, but also show you what ideas AI has in mind. So first of all, number 7 only exists when it's the low one space pincer, right? If you have the high space pincer, there's no way you can play on top. If you play here, it's actually interesting. Again, number 7 is not optimal. And the idea here is that white will be able to cut black off for the time being. But if you put this pattern into AI will tell you that black can actually try to attack the corner, right? Which will be a theme for our lesson today. But this is just, will play out a little differently. And this will get pretty complicated. Try it out if you want. So back to the low one space pincer, right? The idea is for black to stay connected and for white to have to worry about two groups. So can white cut black off with number 8? And the answer is no, right? Number 8 right here, that's the wrong move. This means number 6 will have to be sacrificed, right? You need to sacrifice one more stone so you get 2 more liberties, 3 liberties. Number 13 will capture this stone. If it's something like this, white actually doesn't benefit, right? You might think black is a little bit over-concentrated and white is kind of on top on the outside, but there's still aji in the corner, so the corner is not entirely white's territory yet, and there's a cutting point here on the outside that white will have to worry about sometime down the line, right? So this will favor black. What about playing right here? If you save number 6, then black can actually just play all these forcing moves, right? Atari forcing moves, and then kind of take over the corner. And the corner is a little too big. If you allow black to swallow the start point like this is a little too big. So this will also favor black. So that is why white cannot counterattack, right? Similarly, this is even worse, right? When you play this bumping move, this is even worse because white is short on liberties, white is on the 3rd line. This is not going to end well for white, right? So number 10 is probably the best move after number 8. And black has right here, right? This move kind of prevents white from playing on the 2nd line and getting more ice space. And white's best move is probably just play here on the left side to make sure number 4 is not being attacked on 2 sides. And white still owes a move on the upper side, right? If you play on the upper side, then number 4 will be under a lot of pressure. So even now, black can probably take the corner, right, and settle the group, or black can attack the upper side. So this is not great for white. So what should white do, right? Then there are 2 options. One is to simply extend, and the other is to play the hane. The hane is the correct move, right? Let's look at the extension first. Once again, the problem is that white is not in a good position to develop on the upper side. If you play at number 8, these extensions, a little too slow. So all black needs to do is to pull back. And we're going to see a very similar situation, right? Something like this. And now, of course, white has an extra cutting point here, right? That's the difference. Whereas if you play the extension, number 6 is safe for now. But this is worse for white because of the shape, right? Because of the shape. And that is because so white will probably have to worry about number 4, right? You play any one of these moves, any 4 corner enclosing moves will be fine for now. And black will be able to attack from the upper side, play a pincer, and these 2 stones will be under some pressure, right? So, or maybe even something like this, one space pincer. And so you play here, maybe white can get out this way, right? You can't really push and cut. This doesn't work for black. this also doesn't work, right? Just need to calculate whether you can push through. Nope. So that's why this is probably better. Can white get to play this move? Maybe not, right? Maybe this is how white will proceed. Again, probably one Ryōai in Gote and most, and white will have to escape toward the center, right? So this is where number 8 leaves us if you play the extension, and that is not the best. That's not the best, right? That is why saving number 6 actually is not a priority at this point. And this is the traditional joseki, right? It's for white to take care of number 4 first and to allow black to cut here, right? And now the next move is also important. White needs to connect here, right? This is threatening to kill these 2 black stones. So black will just play another move, settle the group, and capture number 6. And white, depending on the situation, can take sente, right? Having these 3 stones out here is better, right, than saving the stone that we just saw, right? Saving number 6. So this is the traditional joseki that you're going to see in books. Even though number 10, this position might vary a little bit, but the idea is similar. So the idea here, right, is for black to cut white off. White has to worry about number 4 and number 6 at the same time. And the corner is more important for white, so white plays corner enclosing move at number 10, but there's a cutting point. But white is not really afraid of the cutting point because after number 12 and number 14, white is in a relatively good position here, right? And white also has sente, right? So that's the idea. What does black gain from this? Black gain very valuable base, right? This pattern is 99% alive, right? 99% meaning as long as you answer with number 17, this is a living pattern, right? Living shape, no problem, right? Unless you take sente, and white might be able to come in this way. This is not alive locally, and black will have to escape toward the center. So this is a very, very solid base for black. And this works for black well, especially when white is playing the pincer to develop on the upper side. Now, right, the upper side is basically gone. White cannot really play much on the upper side. So I think that's black's goal for choosing this joseki. So let's dial back a little bit, right? After number 11, you might be thinking this move, but this doesn't work, right? You still have the cutting point, right? This is the equivalent of having played this and then white playing another move on the second line. And number 16 right here, right, is not as valuable. So you need to hold off and play the connection on the outside first. Of course, if you consult AI might say black can play here first and then get into the corner, right? It's a faster way of playing. You might be able to even sacrifice number 11 and number 13, right? That's just a little too complicated for our purposes. Right, for us, I think the most peaceful way is to play this. You might be thinking playing this exchange first, but this is not necessarily great for black, right? Because you kind of exhausted your own possibilities. Whereas if you play here first, then you may not play 17, 18 in the future, right? You might play this, you might have other options, right? So making this exchange first, and number 15 and 16 hurts black a little bit, right? So that is why the correct move is simply for black to capture number 6. So I think that is the original, the classic joseki. If this is all you're taking away from this lesson, that's good. But let's look at what AI has in mind these days, and that is, right, so white still plays a corner enclosing move here on the outside, and AI especially likes the 2-space enclosure, if you will, right? Because as we said, the 2-space enclosure is not really guarding the corner, right? The corner is still wide open. Black can come in and take the corner territory anytime. So why number 10 here? And that is because the optimal suggested sequence is actually for black to play on top. A little counterintuitive, not highly recommended, right, for beginners and cube players and many amateur players, because you don't want to give your opponent a base here on the 4th line while you're playing on the 5th line here. But this is what AI is going for. AI think this is the optimal move after number 7 and 9 for black, is to keep playing on top on the 5th line and having influence toward the center, right? So that's what AI thinks. I think most beginners and cube players should feel free to disagree, right? You should think about building a base, right? Especially if you're afraid of being attacked, or you can, of course, with number 8, it's harder to attack than some other patterns that we'll see in just a little bit. But this is AI's suggestion, right? And number 10 is really anticipating black getting a wall on the outside, right? So with number 10 right here, this move really reduces black's influence toward the center, right? Whereas if you play something like this, then after these exchanges, black will be able to keep white down very easily, right? Even with this move, right? Even with number 10 right here, I think we mentioned in one of the previous videos before, black has this move, right? Something like this can still stay on top of this stone on the 3rd line. So that is why if you ask AI, AI is going to say that the 2-space enclosure or extension, right? And as we understand it, it's not about the corner. This is really about contesting the influence on the left side and contesting the influence toward the center. So this is the AI Joseki, the optimal sequence after number 7. And this is okay, right? Black doesn't really have a base, but black can easily move to the corner or even grab the corner, and black is staying on top. So this is perfectly playable for both sides and pretty peaceful, surprisingly. And there are less peaceful ways for both sides to proceed. And one way is for white to save the upper side. So if for some reason the upper side is more important, and white decides to save number 6 like this, or to play toward the center right here at number 10. So this also is okay for white to give up number 6, right? Just play the Atari and number 12, and play a tiger's mouth here on the outside. And this is perfectly fine. Black still owes a move here, and white is in a pretty good shape. But of course, if you play number 10 here, the priority for black is to attack number 4, right? So with the double approach, plus number 7 and 9, this is pretty harsh. And it's not that easy for most amateur players to defend number 4, right? You might be thinking moves like this, but after number 15, right, the trouble is that number 4 might be cut off like this. This is always a big danger for white. But if you don't block here, then the corner will be gone, right? That's another problem. So it's not easy to defend as white in this situation. AI is suggesting this move, but again, a little hard to pull off, right? Play something like this. I think number 6 is captured for now. And might be able to play something like this first, but white will need to get to number 18. Again, the idea is for number 4 to escape toward the center, right? Or maybe number 18 right here can work, but black will be able to play on the outside, right? So not very easy to defend, especially for amateur players when your opponent gets to play number 11, right? So that's something to watch out for. And that is why under most circumstances, you give up number 6, right? Back to our classic joseki. Another option for black after number 8, right, is to play this extension toward the upper side. And white will need to play this bumping move, right? This is a good move to guard against the cutting point. So white is not afraid of the cut for now. But after all these exchanges, again, white is in 2 pieces. Once again, white will have to worry about number 4 first, probably, and black can play something on the upper side to put pressure on this white group, right? Something like this might work, or even something like this. But black also has weaknesses, right? So black will have to worry about this push and cut sometime down the line as well, especially when white takes care of this cutting point. So this is also playable for both sides, but this will develop into a fight. So that's number 9 right here. So this is really another way, I guess, to trigger fights, especially with number 7, number 8. Black has 2 choices. Nothing to be afraid of, I think, for either side. Of course, I think white will be under a little more pressure because he might be afraid number 6 will be taken, but this is fine. As long as you stay on top, sacrifice this stone, right? Black is a little over-concentrated, right? I think the key takeaway here for beginners is that number 8 is the correct response here on the 4th line, not the extension, right? And can whites just play on the left side and ignore number 6? What do you think? The answer is no, not a good idea, right? Because this will be the equivalent of black playing at number 7 and white playing this exchange. Not great, right? Not a good exchange to make, right? Maybe this is a better exchange, right? There's so many other better exchanges that you can play when you're faced with 5 and 7 like this. So you shouldn't allow black to just press down number 6 like this. So if this does happen, then white's best move is to play away, right? You shouldn't try to save number 6 in any way. You should just give it up. So I think that's an introduction to this pressing attachment move at number 7. Not super easy, I would say. But I showed you the classic joseki that you're going to see in books. And I showed you the idea for AI, which is to play on top as black on the 5th line. You can try that if you want. And of course, there are a couple ways to get into fights. But I think the bottom line for white, number 1, is to play the hane on the 4th line. And number 2, for the vast majority of amateur players, you have to worry about number 4 more than this cutting point for number 6. So I would really suggest you take care of the corner start point, make sure this stone is safe, right? Because when your opponents plays the double approach, then this stone, you really have to maneuver. This will be a tough fight for white. Yeah. So these are the main takeaways. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.